3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone. My name is Julian Ichim, and this is Don, and we're here to talk about the war in the Ukraine and the impact it has on housing and poverty here in Canada. Now, the reality of the situation is over the last 2 weeks, there have been 4 attacks on the tent city by the Sterling Bridge past Madison. The last attack, the city took all their property and is refusing to give it back. And we had a car recently drive by and drop a bunch of broken tents and shit in our backyard, which I'm going to ask Don to help me get rid of because it's like a mess and it's all destroyed. We'll talk about this after that. Don just found out about it. As you can see, he's like, oh, I thought I was here to make a movie. Now I'm here to clean up the junk that the city left here or whoever left here. But it's all fucking destroyed and it's a bloody mess. So the reality of the situation is it costs several tens of thousands of dollars to rent those bulldozers every single time. And since they use the bulldozers at the bloody tent city across from the soup kitchen, they've been using the bulldozers as what they do now. And the reality of the situation is that people are dying in the streets. We have an opioid epidemic. We just got over the COVID epidemic. People are sick. People are sick of being sick. People are sick of being scared. People are sick of being hungry. People are being sick of being homeless. And it seems to be going this way. Now, Don, are you up to read a little bit about how much Canada has recently spent in the Ukraine? And this is from March, so these numbers are much higher now. Yeah.
The Ministry of Natural Defense, Anita Anand, announced further contributions of military equipment to Ukraine as it fights for sovereignty, territorial integrity, and independence. The Department of
National Defense
reported on March 3rd these contributions, including Canada's intent to supply an additional lethal aid to Ukraine, mainly up to 4,500 M2s, M72 rockets launchers, and up to 7,500 handheld grenades, and a contribution of 1 million towards a purchase of commercial satellite high resolution and modern imagery that will be provided to Ukraine. Since Sunday, February 27th, Canada has also announced that it will supply approximately 1,600 fragment vests, approximately 390,000 individual meal packs, and commitment of at least 100 anti-armor weapon systems. Carl Gustav M2 recoilless rifles, as well as related accessories and scopes, 2,000 rounds of
84 ammunition, 25 million in non-lethal aid, which could include helmets. That doesn't sound non-lethal. Body armor, gas masks, and night vision gear, and 2 C-130J tactical airlift aircrafts, and a team of 40-50 personnel. In February 2022, the government delivered approximately 10 million worth of military equipment, lethal and non-lethal, to the Ukraine, which includes surveillance and detection equipment, personal carriage and load carriage equipment, machine gun pistols, carbines, 1.5 million rounds of ammunition, and more. The additional military equipment will be announced since Sunday, February 27, being flown from Canada to allied neighboring country as soon as possible, which from the final delivery to the Ukraine will be coordinated. We will leave no stone unturned as we support Ukraine in the hours, days, and the weeks to come, Anand says. So, as we can see, that's several $1,000,000. This money is going to fight a war that doesn't affect us. Worse, if it does affect us, the reality of the situation is that it will affect us by dragging us into a conflict that we don't need. The conflict is here. People are dying here. 10 cities are dying here. Last week, the Toronto Star. Last week, the Toronto Star sent an article, and in this article, it talked about how the 10 cities in Toronto, they were being monitored, they were having psychological profiles on these people, and this sort of thing. Now, the reality of the situation is if we took 1/10 of the money being sent to the Ukraine, if we took 1/10 of the money of policing and destroying these homeless people, we can build housing. Don, why do we need housing?
Why we need housing? Because it's mandatory. There's people right now. What they're doing is they're making sure they're taking away our tents. They're taking away everything. Like when the bulldozer comes, they destroy our homes. They 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 keep it. They throw it in the dumpster, and that person is left with absolutely nothing.
Have you ever been in that position before?
Yes, several times.
Several times. How did that affect you?
Pretty bad.
Pretty bad. Up
You have
until
to start all over again. Get a new tent, get a new sleeping bag, a new pillow, new clothes, because they take everything you have.
Canada, the UN has recently found Canada several times guilty of child poverty. So we're guilty of child poverty. We're guilty of not upholding the Truth and Reconciliation Commission recommendations about fighting colonialism because the government is a colonialist government. Why would they want to fight it? And now we're entering a war while our own people are dying here, while the people who lived here before are dying. And the reality of this situation is that the gas companies are happy. Why are the gas companies happy? The indigenous people have been fighting for the longest time for their lands against fracking. And it hasn't just been indigenous people, it's been farmers. In Alberta, Ludwig was like some Christian guy, and he started realizing that the fracking and the oil drilling and all of that was causing his cows to have spontaneous abortions and this sort of stuff. So we took direct action. The RCMP infiltrated and actually blew up a well to blame on Ludwig. But the reality of the situation is the destruction of the environment of the tar sands is quite seen. Now, with the US saying no to Russia, we won't take any more of your oil, they then contacted Venezuela, who they arrested, a diplomat. You don't arrest diplomats. Oh, Maduro, please give us some gas. Maduro said, first, get rid of these sanctions. Then we can talk about gas. The Emirates he contacted next. They're like, who is it? Trudeau. They're like, nah, we don't want to talk to Trudeau. Wouldn't even return his calls. All the other oil nations, same sort of thing. So what's going to happen? We know that Chrystia Freeland, his grandfather, was with the UNO, which is a fascist organization. He was a writer. Julius Streiser was hung at Nuremberg for doing the same thing that Christia's grandfather did, which was creating the climate of hatred that led to the Holocaust. She's doing the same thing now. She's like poking the fires of hatred, and most of the European Union, and I'm sorry my dad can't be here, but most of the European Union sees this as a hot potato and no one wants to touch it. So where does it go? It goes to Romania. And of course, the US's little puppet, Canada, right on board. regardless of the fact that Canada is a genocidal nation that exists because of the murder of Native people, because of the fact that we have unleveled precedents of poverty, because of the fact that oil is going up, which means that food is going up, which means that housing is going up, which means that fertilizer is going up, means that poor people will no longer be able to afford food. What were you telling me the other day, Don, about the Brits saying and Trudeau saying the famine's going to come here?
Trudeau announced that the famine, people would starve to death just as much here in Ontario and Canada as they do in Ukraine during this war.
A very, very optimistic guy, this Trudeau, isn't he?
So what he's planning is destroying the food industry, which they're doing presently,
Mhm.
and then they're getting ready to starve all the lower class people to start over and reboot the country at fresh.
Well, basically, I don't like the whole reboot theory because it suggests a conspiracy. There is no conspiracy. They're doing this open. Bill
Yeah,
Gates just published a book saying the second pandemic. Are we prepared? What does that mean? We know, for example, that Romanian bought trillions of vaccines. Most of them are out of date,
they
and the
have no
companies
vaccine
are
for
foreign.
starvation.
No, there is no vaccine for starvation. But the fact of the matter is, Romania has all these vaccines and nothing to do with them because the people in Romania and the people in Germany are corrupt and they had some backroom deals, right? And it was so funny that Johannes, the president of Romania, whose background is German, when the Germans came to visit Romania, they played the German national anthem and the Romanian national anthem. Now, when you play the national anthem of your country, you're supposed to put your hand to your chest. When the German national anthem came on, he didn't know the Romanian national anthem, and he put his hand right to his heart. When he realized this, he was like, oh shit, and moved his hand right away. See, that proves he was guilty. If he wasn't guilty, he would be like, yeah, this was the land of my forefathers, this and this. I respect both Canada, I mean, both Germany, both Romania. Instead, he acted guilty. Why? Because he is acting guilty, because he's not acting in the best interests of Romania. The fact is, Canada's been under lockdown for the last 2 years. People have been losing their jobs. More and more working class people are in the food banks. More and more people are sleeping outside. And instead of the Canadian government helping, they're sending all these weapons to Ukraine. And if you look at the Romanian television, many of the refugees from the Ukraine, and I'm not talking about the poor people, I'm talking about the vast majority that the fascists let out, not the ones that escape, come into Romania with Mercedes Benz. Most Romanians can't afford Mercedes Benz. Most people in Canada can't afford a Mercedes Benz. And a lot of them are staying in five-star hotel. These are the political prisoners, like these are the political people that are leaving that have ties with Azov or other Nazi groups that if the UN goes in there, they don't want to be there. They don't want to pay for the crimes of 14,000 children murdered in Donbass. They don't want to talk about the fact that last 2 weeks they bombed Transnistria, a nation of Moldovians and Russians that have lived in peace for the longest time. And the reality of the situation, and just excuse me for a second, I'm going to grab you a book because I want to show you something. This book was written by my grandmother. Yeah, writing is something in my family. Let me just find the book. I found the book. And this book is very, very important because it talks about something. It talks about her village. Her village was by Biala at the Quadrilatère. And she was telling me stories when I was a kid how the fascists would come, and one side of the house in the Quadrilatère, you would have the mother with a gun, which was my grandmother, the other side, the grandfather with a gun, and the kids in the middle. This is the atmosphere they grew up against the fascists. But within their own village, and this is my grandma's book, I'm going to try to find a picture of this village. There were Jews, Muslims, Christians, atheists, and a variety of people. And when it was Ramadan, the Orthodox Christians would wait until it was dark and they would take food to the people from Ramadan. Okay, I can't find the picture, it's in a different book. Anyways, and then when it was our Easter, the Muslims would come and bring lamb because lamb is what we eat. Because, like the Passover, the lamb of blood on the first of the Egyptians, etc., etc., etc. So they would bring us lamb. My grandmother told me this story, and I found it funny because when she told it to me, I was a kid, and I was a kid, right? And I had some male privilege and whatever, and I found this funny. In 1919, there was a communist uprising in Hungary, and then there was like a mass murder and stuff. My grandma hid a communist from Hungary, and Hungarians and Romanians have not always gotten along and stuff. And he was a member of the Communist Party. So my grandma wondered about this, and she asked him, "Is it true that communists all share their women and no one gets married and the women belong to everyone?" And so I'm picturing in my head, because by this age I already considered myself a revolutionary, a socialist, living in proletarian discipline. And I could just imagine the guy's face turning all red, being like, "Comrade, we would never share our wives. We believe in proletariat morality. We do not believe in adultery. Marriage to us is a very important thing. And no, we do not share our women. Women do not belong to us. Blah, 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 blah." But, anyways, as a young little kid, I thought it was funny that, you know what I mean, all the guys. Anyways, the point being, until the invasion of Yugoslavia, until the destruction of the USSR, until the coup d'etat in Romania, Magyars, Romanians, Roma, Jews in Biala, they all lived together. But Biala was part of Yugoslavia, also in the quadrilateral, except for the fascists that wanted to kill anyone. So the reality is, whose interest is this war? This war is not a religious war. This war isn't a war because Ukrainians hate Russians and that this is a sectarian war and we need the UN to come and stop the sectarian war. The reality of the situation is this is a war for profit, and this is a war for the US to push a monopolar view of the world. Meanwhile, what do they want us to do in Canada? Well, we can tell by how they're treating people in Tent City and people sleeping in tents. Don, as someone who's slept in tents and who has many friends who sleep in tents, how are the police treating people sleeping in tents?
They're not. They're just evicting them and pushing them out of the way.
With bulldozers. With that money, they could buy a house. They could put a down payment on a house, and that house can be used to get people off of drugs, to give people housing, to hook up people with workers. Like, just to give someone a house and then leave them alone isn't going to solve the problem. We need the problem to be solved. We need workers to work with these people, to integrate them into society. Instead of trying to get a society that benefits all of us, what they want to do is push the war military complex, industrial complex. And it was an American president who came up with the term. It wasn't a Russian. The military war industrial complex. That's what it's all about. So, for example, Germany is taking money to donate to the Ukrainians to buy weapons. Where's this money going? It's going to a private firm run by Germans. So the money goes back into German pockets. Meanwhile, Romania doesn't have that option. We're supposed to give money. The money goes to, guess where? This private German company to buy weapons, to put us at war with Russia, a war none of us want. We want peace. The people of the world want peace. The working class wants peace. The working class said they were sick of the epidemic, and the working class, by and large, are saying they're sick of the war. But here in Canada, as was pointed out, the working class has no political party. What do you think about that?
The working class has no political party. Um, I think the working class need to get together and have a political party. They need to be heard. Uh, People need to stand up for them because once we're too far gone in debt, which we already are, um, our country will belong to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And this someone else is not Canada. We're buying weapons and we owe different countries, and Canada is going to belong to them.
Pretty much. It was like the land lease deal, which is how the US became the superpower. They did the land lease deal with Britain. They backed up Britain during World War II with shabby weapons. In return, Britain gave them land, which made America the superpower that it was.
And it's not even their land to give away.
Exactly. It's not even their land to give away. It's native land, and no one's recognizing it. Or if they recognize it, they say at the beginning of a speech, "We are staying on such and such land." And then they stop there. So what are you doing? Are you like boasting that you murdered these people and stole their lands? Because from the way I see it, you're not doing anything to benefit them. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission, like the Minsk Accord that Putin put, both of them have not been implemented. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission came out of the fact that missing and murdered Indigenous women were growing and growing and growing, and the residential schools and racism and genocide and colonialism, and it's basically being ignored. Not only that, poor people are also being ignored because they want to kill us all. They do. They want a working class that would be slaves, and they want themselves. They don't realize that the working class has a mind of their own. Most of the working class have gone through basic education, at least the first 8 years, and some part of high school. They're not stupid. They know what's going on. And they've been workers their whole life. They know what's what. So they can't be lied to. They know the NDP is not their political party. The NDP starting a deal has proven that. So what we need to do is we need to build our own party, a party of the working class. And let me tell you, there is such a party, as another famous Russian said. Anything, we'll go more into that on another podcast. Anything else you would like to say? Okay, we're gonna yeah, so thank you for listening. We think this money needs to be spent on housing. We need this money needs to be spent on food. The fact of the matter is, Jesus, the phone, who keeps on calling me? They can wait. Anyways, the fact of the matter is, if they were about peace and helping the Ukrainian people, they wouldn't be sending weapons. They would be sending things like ambulances. They would be sending doctors, like Cuba sends doctors. It's interesting to note that after the collapse of the Soviet Union, Cuba took in a lot of the children of Chernobyl and treated them, and has done so up until they were told not to do so anymore. So, like, the reality of the situation is, like, if they cared, they'd act like Cuba. They'd send doctors, they'd send nurses, they'd try to help. They don't want that. They want weapons, weapons, weapons. They want war, war, war. And who's to fight the war? The working class children of the Romanian people. That's who's to fight this war. We don't want to fight this war. None of us want this war. If Biden wants this war, let him go and fight. The reality is that with all of this, gas is going up, which means food's going to go up, which means transportation's going to go up, which means that the working class and the unemployed will be cut off from the means that they need to survive. What do you think of that?
Well, if they want to raise the money or the food and the rents and everything like that, well, the number one thing they should raise as well is the social assistance and the old age pension needs to go up, and um, like single mothers, they need more
See,
money to feed those kids.
that's true, but we live in a capitalist society and they don't see like old people as productive members of society. They don't see young mothers as productive members of society, despite the fact that they raise by themselves the youth of the next generation while having a job or doing whatever they can to survive.
And they don't really care about the Canadian next generation. They're willing to bring them over from a different country right now.
See, like, I'm not against immigration. Canada was
I'm
built
not, but
on,
you
like,
don't replace a population.
with another population,
Yeah.
particularly a population with Mercedes and like Volkswagens. Like we
History,
talk,
Canada has that history. They came here; it was already populated. They created genocide. They put their own people in there. Canada is the way it is right now because of their system caused so much poverty. Now they're willing to create genocide again and bring in a whole different population and start all over again.
see, but I agree and I disagree with you. The fact of the
It's
matter is,
okay.
there's a
It's
lot of
okay that we
there
have
are
immigrants,
yeah.
but there's plenty of jobs for everybody. You don't have to commit genocide and kill all the women and children and old age people. You don't have to do that,
Yeah, but that's what capitalism is: profit at the expense of all of us, and that's what the bottom line is.
and that's
How
why
many people died in the Great Depression? As see, even with all the immigrants, we could feed all the immigrants. We could feed all the people of the world.
and that's
We
why we
can't
need a
deal with the
government for the
greed.
people by the people.
Exactly. And the fact of the matter is, it's not poor people going to Romania from the Ukraine. It's people with Mercedes and 5-star hotels. Do you think the Romanian people have Mercedes and 5-star hotels? No, they don't. So, yeah,
And most Canadians don't.
like the poor people who live, first of all, they're starting sectarian violence. When they don't have a political argument, they deal with things sectarianism. That's how they dealt with Ireland. That's how they dealt with like the French issue here. They divided Quebec and Ontario, putting a bunch of Anglophones in the French speaking part and a bunch of French speakers in the English speaking part. And the idea being that if, like, the French get out of the line, English will punish them. If the English get out of line, they will punish them. And that's called sectarianism because they don't have a political argument. And all they can reply to with is sectarianism. What we need is an indigenous led republic where we think 7 generations ahead. How is this going to impact stuff? And that sort of thing. Thank you very much for listening. Do you have anything else you want to say? So, yeah, they have money to. Yeah. Miigwech. They have money for war, but can't feed the poor, as Tupac said. And that's what's going on. Thank you very much for listening.